G'day guys, welcome to a special edition of the Boxing Deep Dive Show. It is my trip to the International Boxing Hall of Fame. It took place at Canastota, New York on the weekend of, well, it was Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, the 8th until the 12th, I think it was. Just to let you know, there will be a more detailed video in the days after. You've probably watched this one. But I just wanted to really touch on the weekend or the 4 days, whatever it was, excuse me, while it's still fresh in my mind because, look, it's not for everyone this trip, but if you're a boxing fan or a boxing tragic like I and a lot of you guys are out there as well, it really was a bucket list type of affair, and that's why I want to talk about it right now while it's, as I said, while it's still fresh in my mind. So if you're not familiar with the International Boxing Hall of Fame, it is in Canastota, New York, upstate New York. So it's about an hour and a half flight or something from New York City straight up and across to the east. So it's about a 3-hour drive from Buffalo, and it's a really interesting one because the first thing that sprung to my mind is what the hell is this doing in a place like this? And you would normally expect it to be in a place like New York or Las Vegas or wherever like that, but to see it in the town of Canastota, this is a town that has 4,500 people in it. And it is the home, or they say the little slogan behind it is boxing's hometown. And when you get there, you can understand why, because when you drive in to the town, it's just off the freeway, you would almost miss it. And when you walk, and when you drive in there, just on your right hand side, you can see the little the museum, which is only about as big as probably a small house. I'll get to that in a sec. And there's the pavilion. Now it's all out in the open, pretty much in the middle of the town. And when I first drove through there, I thought I'll go get something to eat, and went up to the main street. Look, it was, I almost had to laugh because it was so small and there was just nothing around. But if you imagine that small town USA type of town where every flag's like the American flag out the front, and there's people sitting on their porch and they've got the John Deere hats on, the ones I'm talking about, just that really stereotypical American that we probably all picture from the movies or whatever it might be. And I must admit, I just drove around. I couldn't help it. I just drove around looking at this place and the houses that are so different to what we have in Australia. And that was my first impression anyway. And I know we're here to talk about the boxing weekend itself, but you've really got to put it in the context about what this town is. It is so small, as I said, 4,500 people. Everyone seems to know each other. Wherever you almost expect them to have the bit of straw out the mouth and all the rest of it. It was just that type of town, and it was just so awesome. And I drove around a bit, as I said, and I went to a diner. And if you've looked at some of the stories I've put on social media, you would have seen that I had dinner or breakfast or lunch, whatever you want to call it. I had breakfast all day at these restaurants, which is amazing. Going there at 4 o'clock in the afternoon and eat pancakes or French toast, it's amazing. So I went in there. I can't remember what time it was, and I got some French toast. French toast and a coffee. The French toast was $4.75. The coffee was 10 cents. Free refills, by the way. And with taxes, it was $5.24. So that was just one of the first interactions that I had in the community, and to see the old guys at the counter, they probably eat there every single day, and just what you see in the movies, that's what it was like. So that's Canastota for you. But when you get in there, it's all run by volunteers. I think maybe the curator or whatever he's in there he would have to be paid. He does it full time, but volunteers everywhere. So I get there on the first day. So I got there actually on the Wednesday night. It wasn't officially supposed to start until the Thursday. Excuse me, but I went in there. I got there on Wednesday night. I wanted just to get settled in. I always like to give myself plenty of time with these sorts of things. So I got there on Wednesday evening, I suppose you would call it, and I went over to the Hall of Fame, and there was a few people, milling around, I suppose, but really no one there. So I went in and got my tickets for the weekend. I had tickets. The actual Hall of Fame itself is free. You had to pay to go into the museum part, but to go to all the lectures and all that was absolutely free. So it was awesome. So I got my tickets. Went back to the hotel, of course, Thursday morning. I thought, right, okay, let's go. So I got over there early. The first lectures, I think, were starting at like 9:30 or 10 o'clock in the morning. So I got over there then, and all day it was different people they brought out. I think the first day it was, who was it? I think it was Shane Mosley was there, Juan Manuel Marquez. These guys, they actually brought them out. I mean, you would have seen the video if you've seen a lot of the videos before this on our Instagram or Facebook or whatever it is. There's just a stage. They just they just get up there, and you'll see this in the videos that I release a few days after this one. But they just get them up. There's probably, I don't know, 80 or 90 people just sitting around, a little audience, heaps of people mingling around and everything else. And they just interview them. People can walk up to the stage and ask them a question, and they get a fist bump or they shake their hands or whatever it might be. And it was just, as I said at the start, this is for those hardcore fans, all the ones that are there with their boxing gloves to sign, or a poster to sign, or a T-shirt to sign, or a program, whatever it might be. That's your opportunity, and so they got them on stage for interviews, and then after that they would take them to the side for autographs. Now people would line up. You might get 100 or so people line up, but they signed every single autograph. They took every single picture. There's no charging or that you might get at some different expos that you might go to in some of the other events around the country. So it was just a really good first day. And then on the Thursday night, it was, if I can remember, I think that was actually about it on the first day. It was the lectures for those guys. Then the next day, probably where it started to spice up a little bit. The Thursday was pretty quiet. There might have been a couple of hundred people around, but as I said, you could just walk around. You're running. I think I ran into Sean Porter, Antonio Tava, Shane Mosley walked past. Saw Paulie Malignaggi. They just walk around. That's quite amazing. So then on the Friday, is when a few started to roll up. James Toney, I think he was actually there the day before as well. Actually, so yeah, James Toney was there. Andre Ward came. Shane Mosley was there again. I think Miguel Cotto showed up as well, which was great. So they interviewed them all on stage. Again, everyone was able to line up. And I'm not talking about 100 people in line waiting for a question. I'm talking about 4 or 5 people, so you're guaranteed to get your question answered. And as I said, you could fist bump them or shake the hand. It was just great, and that real interaction with these guys. It was just no different to probably having them around your house. That's just what it felt like. They were just up on the stage. There was no security there. There was no minders around. They were just on stage, and they got up and they got down. They would wander around the crowd, and that's how great it was. Now, I must admit, I'm not one of those people that I'm not exactly socially outgoing or an extrovert. I'm more an introvert. I don't really like the whole chasing people down for autographs and photos. It's just not really my style. Having said that, I hold nothing against the ones that did. However, I've never seen more 40 and 50-year-old grown men act like Justin Bieber groupies. That was probably the only downside. And as I said, I'm not begrudging them for it, because these are people that live for boxing. They watch it on every week. These aren't just casual fans. They're the ones that turn up and they've got the T-shirts from 20 years ago for whatever fight they went to. As I said, the big glove that's got like 100 signatures on it, so they follow these people around everywhere. So I certainly don't begrudge it, but there was a few times where I'm not sure whether you've seen the Seinfeld episode when George Costanza, there's a fire in the apartment, he knocks over the granny on the walking frame and the kids and that sort of stuff. It reminded me a little bit of that, probably not to that extent, of course, but that was probably the only downside, where you got people, they would just lose themselves. They would see someone, whether it be a Bernard Hopkins or a Roy Jones Jr., and it will just be, there they are, and they've got the Terminator vision on, and they just go for it, and it doesn't matter who's in their way. And that was probably the only time where I saw the security and the staff, probably not security, sorry, they weren't security per se, they were event staff. They were just there, but they sort of doubled as security. But that was probably the only time I saw them actually probably get a little bit irritated when they're saying, guys, if you do not behave yourselves and conduct yourselves in an orderly fashion, then we will take them out the back and you won't have access to them all. Because what would happen sometimes when they got there, because this is not a big building or anything else, so it would literally roll up and they would go through the back pavilion, and then they would, they had a room or something, then they would just walk out. And then when they were finished, as I said, they would just walk off. But what would happen is sometimes they would be spotted, and of course someone would make a beeline, and once someone makes a beeline, well, that's open season, and you'll get 50 people or 100 people, whatever it might be, and they would just converge. And it just got a little bit uncomfortable sometimes. You could tell, as good as the inductees were with their time, nothing was too hard for them. That was probably the only time you could sort of see them thinking. They wouldn't say it, of course, but they'd be thinking, guys, geez, for Christ's sake, will you just step off and let me breathe? I'll sign your autograph or take your picture, just relax. And as I said, that was probably the only thing. And because I'm not that way inclined, I just stood back and filmed everything. I have no doubt there's a lot of people I do know that would have been maybe in the same boat. And as I said, I don't begrudge them for doing it, because it's quite exciting when you're standing there and Roy Jones Jr. walks past, and says hello. And, as I said, it's not like you're in Vegas or wherever where there's the entourages and people. It was still hectic, but not as hectic as usual. So that was great. And then on the Friday evening, we had the fight night. So that was good. We went to the Turning Stone Casino in Verona, I think it's called, which is about a 15-minute drive. So we went there. That was good. It was a Lou DiBella show. I got a ringside ticket for about $100, which was really good. The fights were quite good. The main event was one of those really scary ones, to be honest. The Russian, I think he was, or I think it was Ukraine. It's Kazakhstan. He was a Kazakhstani, so he was the main event against a really durable American guy. But he got knocked out really badly, and I think about the 8th round. One of those ones where you don't really want to look, because he was out, and he was out for quite some time. There was a little bit of panic in the ring, and you don't like to see that, because of course the media and all that have a field day when it comes to that. So that was it was great, good fight, but that was probably the only downside to it. But look, it was a good crowd. Probably, I think there would have been maybe 3,000 people there, which is a really good turnout, I would have thought. It was just a really good night. And I had Shane Mosley and Sean Porter sitting directly behind me. But heaven help you if you try and get an autograph, because you turn around and, again, when they're spotted, everyone's lining up. And the poor guys were just trying to watch the fight. And I understand when you're at the fights, your open season, or it's open season on them, if they put themselves out there in that environment. I've been there myself when it's happened before. I understand that they're fair game, but all night there were people, and they were going in and out the rows. It got a little bit uncomfortable, but anyway, that's the way it was. But all the inductees really gave the time. It was really good of them, I thought. So then on the Saturday, I went to more lectures, and I tell you what, I went to one where it's probably the best. Well, it was the best lecture of the 4 days. That's guaranteed. But one of the best seminars or panels or whatever you want to call it I've ever seen. It was I think it was about a dozen of the best referees in the world. Now, a few of the names, Kenny Bayless, Tony Weeks, Robert Bird, to name just a couple of them. So they were great, and what it was, everyone got a chance to get up and ask a question. If you look at their YouTube page, you'll see that there's, I think, about a 3 or 4 minute bit of footage there of them talking about the Julio Cesar Chavez Meldrick Taylor fight from 1990. It was at the Las Vegas Hilton, about what they would have done in the same circumstances, and what they thought about what Richard Steele did on the night. So that's really interesting. So check that out if you haven't. But to hear some fans get up and they ask some great questions, just different things, and to hear them talking about what goes on in the ring and the things they say to each other and what the training they do. I mean, let's face it, when you watch these guys in the ring, the good ones you don't notice, of course, but to see the preparation they do. They're all talking about at least 3, if not 4 times a week. They're in the gym just like the fighters are, where the fighters will be practicing the pad work and all that sort of stuff. These guys are in there refereeing, sparring. They help each other out. They're the big advocates of that, where they'll communicate with each other and meet up where possible and actually get advice. The more inexperienced ones will ring a Kenny Bayless or a Tony Weeks or a Robert Bird for some advice, and they really help themselves out. But they will get in there and referee people sparring, and they'll have it videotaped. They'll take it home and critique themselves and get other people to critique them. So it was really interesting, and that was just some of the stuff they were talking about. But the best ones were when they were talking about the big fights they'd been in, and to hear. I think one of them said, I refereed Mayweather Pacquiao, and I refereed De La Hoya and Hopkins, and I think it was actually Kenny Bayless. It was a really interesting story when he said about, if you've seen, I'm gathering you've seen the fight where Hopkins dropped him with the body shot. Well, Kenny Bayless admitted he didn't see the shot, and he was praying that it wasn't a low blow because it was on the opposite side. And he went down. Of course, there's no video footage back then, so he had to make the call. And when he looked, and he counted Oscar out, and he was looking at the replay, praying that it wasn't, a low blow. So luckily it wasn't, and you've seen that, you'd know that. So, but just little stories like that, it was really great. And as I said, it was just really insightful to hear them talking about that. And then we went to the Canastota High School, and they had a memorabilia and card show, which was. It was just pretty much a wet dream for boxing fans. It was just, programs and posters and magazines and books and fight tickets, you name it. You would have seen, if you followed the social media, I bought a pair of Vinny Pazienza trunks. I saw them there. I just had to have them. Cost me $60, if you can believe that. Fully signed, certificate of authenticity. A young guy had all his grandfathers. I think his grandfather must have died, and he had just a garage full of stuff, and he took it down to sell it all. So $60 to buy a signed pair of Vinny Pazienza shorts, trunks, which was great. But for me, it was pretty nostalgic because I had a guy there had KO magazines. KO magazine back in the day was it for me. I had every single one, and going through them was quite surreal, because as I was going through them, I realised that I probably had 90% of those when I was a kid growing up, about 12, 13 years old, wherever it might be, mid-80s. And to go through them and think, wow, I actually had all these magazines myself, and he had hundreds of them. They were everywhere. But that was, that was great. And they had robes there, and as I said, trunks and gloves, and some of the referees actually turned up there, and I think James Toney was there. Juan Manuel Marquez was there as well. So look, these guys just gave the time every single day, all day. They would be giving the time to the fans. So it was just awesome. So, and then Sunday, which is the day I'm filming this, again they had the parade in the morning. I think it was about lunchtime. Make sure you check out the video that's coming up, because it was just unbelievable to be there. It was like a parade. Exactly where it is. This is an outback American town. There would have been a few thousand people in line, but literally you could just walk up to or sit on the footpath like you would at an Easter parade or a Christmas parade or wherever it was, and pretty much reach out and give the guys a high five, and that was great. It wasn't just the fighters as well; it was the marching bands, and it was pretty cool. It was really cool. They had the local sheriff goes through there, and everyone knows each other, and people walking past, and just it was, look, you had to sort of be there to believe it. But I just had a ball, and the amount of times where I'm looking around and people I've sort of caught people's eyes, and they look at me like, who is this guy? Because I literally sometimes can't get the smile on my face. I'm looking around, I'm just taking it all in. But as I said, for me, is a boxing tragic, and I'm sure a lot of you guys are out there as well. It really is a bucket list type of thing. And then, onto while we're all there, of course, which is the induction. So, I will backtrack a bit. Last night, so the Saturday night was the banquet auction. So that was great. So they had everyone there. Floyd Mayweather made a late entrance. Oscar De La Hoya came as well. I didn't actually see him. They did introduce him, but I didn't see him. They had all the inductees up. Couldn't score a ticket to the banquet. I got in a little bit late. I think there was about 1,300 people there. Again, check out the footage on our social media, and they got them all up there, and everyone was great. Floyd Mayweather got up there, and again, look at the video that I've put on here and on our Instagram page. He went for nearly 20 minutes. The first 3 or 4 minutes he couldn't speak. He was just in tears and about how much it meant to him, and he spoke really well. It was really sort of inspiring, I suppose, and shed a different light on Floyd, because it's a little bit of take him or leave him sometimes. But I will say, watching his induction today, for all the credits he got last night or at the banquet auction, he sort of lost. This is only my personal opinion. He got up there and he spoke about all the money he'd made and how much he's making each week. And I remember just thinking, oh, Floyd, do you really have to go into the money thing? A lot of people struggling out there at the moment. You really want them to, or everyone just to be forced down the throat that you've made $1 billion and you're making hundreds of $1 million a year. I didn't think it needed to be said. But the thing that really probably put me off the most or disappointed me the most was that he said that, well, everyone knows I'm the TBE, I'm the best there's ever been, I'm the best there is at the moment, I'm the best there ever will be. And I just thought to myself, read the room, look around and look at the fighters that you're in the presence of. This is not the setting to be talking about that. Do it on your social media or a podcast or whatever it might be. In the International Boxing Hall of Fame with all the other, he's got Andre Ward on the stage, he's got Roy Jones Jr. on the stage. Layla Ali's there, of course, the daughter of Muhammad Ali. It's not really the time and place, I would think, to be puffing the chest out and saying that I'm the best ever and the best there ever will be. There's a time and a place, and that was not it. Everyone else was totally respectful. Roy Jones, Andre Ward, as I said, Juan Manuel Marquez kept it really short, maybe because of his English, I'm not sure. He was great. Miguel Cotto, Shane Mosley was awesome. They're all inspiring in their own ways. And I actually really enjoyed, I must admit, Lou DiBella's speech. He went for quite some time, but really about what the sport meant to him. He actually got a little bit teary as well. So it was just great. And I'm sure a lot of those will probably come out on social media at some stage. There was a few, I think Fight Hype was there, and there'll be Elliot Seckback I saw as well there. So I'm sure there'll be lots of videos getting around. But for me personally, it was definitely a dream come true. I'd always wanted to do this. I did visit here about 8 years ago. It wasn't an induction weekend. It was just calling through. I was on holidays with my family and called in and got the private tour by Ed Brophy, who's the main man there. So thank you to Ed. You made me feel so welcome. This is my first time, and I just had to go this year. 3 years in one. Normally there's a dozen in total, because they probably have about half a dozen fighters, but they have journalists, they have just there might be doctors, whatever it might be, broadcasters. It might just sort of depend. So they normally have about a dozen, but this time they had 36 inductees across the board in all different areas. So I just had to come, and I'm so glad I did. It's easily the best trip I've ever been in boxing, and I've been to about 25 big title fights in Vegas, and this easily took the cake. Now, as I said, it's not really the thing if you're just a casual boxing fan, or you might watch the fights on pay-per-view if they're on, or you might go to even a big fight if it's on in Australia, but you're a boxing fan. This is for the hardcore, and I'm telling you, if you are hardcore, this is the trip for you. And I understand not everyone can do it, so I don't mean to imply that, but if you've ever dreamt about coming to the States for a big fight, that's great. But I would implore you to consider this weekend, because this weekend is for the fans, totally for the fans. And I was so blessed. As I said, if I was a bit more pushy or a bit more extroverted or whatever, then the amount of photographs and autographs and all that I could have got, maybe even interviews, I'm not sure, but I just didn't want to encroach on them and play bumper cars with 100 other people. So I didn't get the interviews and all that sort of stuff. But I would implore you that, as I said, if you are a really passionate, hardcore fan, really try and put on your bucket list and get to Canastota, New York. It's in the first week of June every year. This one, of course, was 3 years rolled in one because of COVID. But to have all those guys there, it really was something to behold. And to see the tribute to Marvelous Marvin Hagler at the banquet, I mean, I must admit, I shed a tear. It was so moving. The video they put up, they had his wife come on stage and talk. Everyone was in tears, and I mean, we all love Marvelous Marvin Hagler. He used to actually go to Canastota every year. He would be there. Michael Spink's another one. He was there. He comes every year. And, it was great to see Terence Crawford make the trip. Sean Porter, Paulie Malignaggi said, I was actually surprised there wasn't more boxers from yesteryear or that have been inducted in the Hall of Fame that didn't actually come, because it was just a real good people build meeting exercise, a reputation building exercise. Then I did see Sebastian Fundora there. Of course, we all know him. He's competing alongside Tim Tszyu to fight Charlo next. Looks like Tim's obviously got the fight, of course, but he was there, sort of trumpeting up his credentials as well. But I really take my hat off to his team, because they've got him there to network him, get him to meet the fans, and the fans were so appreciative of it. And I think he would have gained a lot of fans because of it. So as I said, I was surprised that not only did a lot of the inductees from years gone by weren't there to be there for the fans, but also just boxers in general. As I said, Crawford, Porter, they were all there. So that was great. But I just would have liked to have seen maybe a few more turn up for the weekend and really give back to the fans. Because at the end of the day, without the fans, these guys are nothing. So, excuse me. So that's my trip to Canastota. I'm sure there's some things that I've missed and I'll probably touch on in the deep dive show. And as I said, don't forget to keep a lookout for the official or the full length video that'll be coming out. I've got so much footage from the 4 or 5 days I was here. I'll put together a video and you can see for yourself. But so that was my take on it. I had a ball. It's the best trip, as I said, that I've ever been on in 25 or so attempts that I've been overseas for boxing. And it's made me realise what I love about this sport. The amount of times I got shivers up the spine or a tear in the eye, or just nostalgic and really touched by the whole thing. And I know everyone's experience is different, but for me, to sit back and take it all in and just observe and listen and watch and film, of course. For me, that really made the trip so much better. And I got so much out of it. Not just this, I also seen friends in Canada, and I was in New York City for 4 days. It was just a trip of a lifetime for me, and I can't wait to do it again. I'm not quite sure I would come back again, because the only reason would be, could it measure up to this one? I mean, 3 years in one, so many people here for it, or the inductees I'm talking about. Could I come back and only have a third of that? I don't know. Maybe. Depends on who they induct. But when you look at Mayweather and Hopkins and Roy Jones Jr. and Mosley and Marquez, and I just had to be here. And even running into Holly Holm was great, And a quick story before I finish the video, actually. I'm sitting there having dinner with a friend I'd met that lived in New York and came up for it, Eddie Montavo. So, g'day, Eddie. I was having dinner with him when he first got there a couple of days before, and I was actually talking about Holly Holm, which because with Sue Fox, who's pretty much runs women's boxing in the world, and Eddie's very involved, and I just mentioned that how much I respect and admire Holly Holm, and my second favourite female fighter, of course, behind our own Shannon O'Connell, but how much I admired her. And we spoke probably for 10 minutes because Eddie and Sue had seen her fight so many times, and then out the blue, and of the corner of my eye, I saw someone get up in a booth, 2 booths down from us. It's Holly Holm. And I couldn't believe it. We'd been talking about her for 10 minutes, and there she was with her mum having dinner. And she come over. She was great. She took a photo, shook my hand, and we were talking about boxing, and it was great. She's very humble, and as I said, my second favourite female fighter behind Shotgun Shannon O'Connell. So it was just great, and those sort of things popped up, and I'm sure there'll be 10 other things that come into mind that I haven't mentioned, but they're the ones that's fresh in my mind after I'm at the hotel now, flying back home tomorrow, and I just wanted to get this down in a video format. So before I lose some of the memories. So and I'm myself looking forward to the videos myself when it comes out, because I can't remember half the stuff I took them on. So I've got hours and hours of footage. So as I said, keep a lookout for that. But thanks for watching. That was my trip to Canastota, New York. I hope you enjoyed a little bit what I had to say. And as I said, we'll be talking more about it on some future shows, and of course the video itself. So thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you soon.